We could keep the music going the whole time. No. Okay, well, good evening. I'm Tim Stauffer with the Iola Register. Thank you very, very much for being here tonight. You probably don't need me to tell you the importance of tonight's conversation. You'll read in tomorrow's Register about Freeman Health System's recent decision to cancel construction of a new hospital in Frontenac. The move appears to really have blindsided their city leadership as well as a community that was planning on a new hospital. Or look to Fort Scott, who just last month, after 7 long years, opened a new hospital after Mercy left in 2018. Or remember this community's long journey to build a hospital, the building that opened in October 2013. That building, our community hospital, is why we're here tonight. The quarter-cent sales tax on the ballot's up for renewal on November 4th. If you're not already registered to vote, you have until Tuesday, October 14th to do so. We'll get to the conversation quickly, but before we do, I just wanted to give you an overview. We've got postcards and pens at the back. If you have a question for the panel, just write it down and raise your hand. I'll collect these as the evening goes on. There definitely will be time for questions. But to go ahead and get started, I'd like the panelists to each, and we'll start with you, Dr. Wenker, to each just quickly introduce themselves and explain who they are, a bit of their background, and their relationship to both Allen County Regional Hospital and to rural healthcare generally. So thanks again for being here, and let's go ahead and get started.
I'm Charles Wenker. I'm an FP doc here in town. I've been here about 10 years. Born and raised in West Virginia. Grew up in a small town, pretty much practiced in a rural hospital most of my life. Was in the Air Force for about 10 years. Lived in 3 countries, 5 states, practiced medicine in 4 different locations. My wife is from here. We moved here about 10 years ago. It's been a huge blessing, and just, plan to be a part of this community for the next, 20 years or so, practicing medicine. Very interested in this hospital. Matter of fact, when I came here on a tour back in 2015, one of the things that attracted me to Allen County was the fact that they just built a brand new hospital, and it showed the county's commitment to hospital, and that was a big factor actually in me coming here.
Hi, I am Patty Miklos Boyd. I think I'm on this panel because I was on the original hospital board for 8 years, if you can believe that. I served 2.5 terms. The first term was a 2-year term, and then I served 2 full terms after that. So I spent a lot of time getting the hospital built and opened, and even before that, getting the hospital located. That was our first big job. I see lots of heads nodding. People who remember, some of my fellow board members are here, remember us doing that. So I'm not sure why I was selected to serve on the board. Maybe I was the only person who would say yes from Moran. I don't know. I'm also from, I live in Moran, so I'm not an Iola person, I'm a Moran person. And my husband, Mark, was also involved on the group that sort of preceded the board, and that was the facilities committee, which I can see some folks who were there that studied the hospital that we had in 2010 and studied other hospitals around us and got some good advice and recommended that we build a new hospital. That was a really important group, and I do see some of those folks here today. I'm also right now on the REACH Foundation Board of Directors. Some folks may know what the REACH Foundation is. In a nutshell, it's a big pile of money that courts put aside to help rural hospitals when Health Midwest sold their hospitals to HCA. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, just know this. We are lucky as Allen County to have access to that funding. We are lucky that we get a person from Allen County to serve on that board. So thank you to the county commissioners. They're the ones that appointed me to it. And it's a fascinating insight into healthcare, both rurally and healthcare in general. A fascinating thing, and I think that we're lucky as a county to have access to that foundation. I am a judge, a municipal court judge, and that is how I sort of have contact with lots of people who I believe the hospital helps. Lots and lots of people who come into my court are on their way to the hospital, on the way from the hospital, so I'm glad it's here. I'm also a participant in the hospital as a customer, my husband had a major stroke in 2019 that left him paralyzed on one side of his body. And so we are very grateful that there's a hospital here and that it has a good physical therapy department. Before I've been blessed with totally good health, never went to the hospital for anything but a checkup, but I'm really happy that we have a hospital and I have that choice and my husband has that choice. So thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate the Register for putting this on too. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, my name is Camila Vaughn. I'm the Director of Economic Development for Allen County, the City of Humboldt, as well as the City of Iola. Excited to be here. A large portion of what my job is industry advocacy. So that's industry or companies that have already invested and chosen to do business in Allen County, and also looking at our economic projection, our future, where we're going, how we'll develop, what does the future look like. And so as we discuss this afternoon, that will be my lens and my input that I'll be bringing to the table.
I'm John Brocker. I'm Commissioner for Allen County. I also sit on the facility board. Since Lauren passed away, I became the chairman of it because I was vice chair at the time. And we lost a good asset, and I want to say thank you to Patty for being here because you've got good experience from from when this really started. I got it from when I come in, so I think hopefully we can discuss and let you understand how everything evolved. With Patty's help, she'll be able to help me get through how the full thing evolved to where we're at today. But basically, we're a facilities board now, like a landlord, because the county does own the hospital, and we are the landlords of that hospital. So.
Very good. My name is Pat Patton, and I'm the administrator for the hospital here at Allen County, as well as the hospital in Garnett. I work for BJC St. Luke's Health System. That I've been involved in Kansas healthcare for longer than I really want to say, because I know I look a lot younger than I am. In any event, I've been involved in rural healthcare and kind of a diverse set of underserved area programs in the state going back to 1989. Another lady and I set up the very first FQHC in the state of Kansas in 1991. And then I was involved, was a rural health consultant for the state and was involved in the program that ultimately helped write the federal law that set up critical access hospitals in the country. And Kansas has been a leader in hospital healthcare development going back many, many years, all the way back to the late 60s, early 70s. And in the early 60s, we took advantage of the Hill-Burton Act, and we have more hospitals. Used to be, we had more hospitals in this state per capita than any other state in the country. And Kansas has been a leader at forefront of developing new ideas in healthcare for a long time, and I'm excited I've been a part of that. But I'm educated here in Kansas, which I'm not native to Kansas, but I went to Wichita State and am a KU grad. Some of those naysayer K-Staters, take that into account, please, and forgive me on that a little bit. But no, I'm proud KU graduate, and my wife is a Kansas Newman graduate, so Kansas is very near and dear to our hearts. So I'm glad to be here. I've always worked with rural areas. I love living here in Iola. I live here about 29 out of 30 days a month. And I like driving in rural America. Because I go back to the metro, I go to Kansas City, and I hate driving in Kansas City. So one of the upsides is driving in Iola. I appreciate that much. That was a little funny. But.
All right, the first question I have is...
With your permission, 3 people from the right side, can you point the microphone to your mouth? That way they'll be able to hear you well.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks,
you.
Mike. Thanks for saying that.
Yep, I'll leave you alone.
The guilty parties, right? All right, the first question I had, and just so you know, we can kind of, multiple people can address it, or we can just have one person and then move on. I don't want to belabor any points or beat dead horses tonight either. So the first question is, I'd like to delve in a little bit to the history of this sales tax. It's been on the books since 2010. Where did it come from? What was its original intent? And then today, in 2025, moving forward, why is it still necessary? Why is the sales tax still something that we need?
Patty, do you want to start because you were involved with that?
I can start with that. I'm really happy to see Jay Kretzmeyer here, and so I hope that he will nod if I'm right and do this if I'm not, to help keep me honest, because that is going back to when I was a much younger woman, because we've been at this since 2010. So my understanding is that the sales tax was, the county didn't want to build a hospital and pay with property taxes, right? So that was kind of this sort of bottom line of where we started. We didn't want to fund the new construction with property taxes. At the time, the hospital was leased by HCA, Health Corporation of America. That's a for-profit hospital corporation of America. That's a for-profit owner of hospitals. They didn't want to build the building either. So there were two options that were kind of off the table. So at the time, the city also partnered with the county, and we put to a vote of the citizens a sales tax that would be used to take care of the bonds and the interest on the bonds. And I think that we're doing a 30-year, is that right, Jay? Yep, 30 years, that we would spend 30 years and $30 million. Is that what it turned out to be? Okay. So far, so good,
job.
Jay.
That's good.
Okay. A portion of what of the $30 million was a working capital loan, because since this hospital had been operated by HCA, we didn't really have any way to do our day-to-day, pay our bills. So we needed a pile of money. The sales tax was determined to be the best way to do that, and a joint effort between the county and the city. So there was a vote, and I believe something like 72% of the people voted to approve it, which is practically unheard of.
That's really, really high.
It was amazing, and it was to the credit of a lot of people who got out that vote and got out that information. And also to somebody who I don't see here tonight, Gary McIntosh, somebody who believed from the very beginning that we needed it and just kept pushing until we got it. So the sales tax is necessary now. As you know, we at the very beginning, we had a management agreement. So we didn't, the hospital business itself. The hospital is both a building where you go and a place where people take care of you, right? And so the people who take care of us now at the hospital are St. Luke's folks. At the beginning, they were not. At the beginning, we had a management agreement with HCA. We kind of stuck with them, even though they didn't lease the business, they managed the hospital. So part of what we're doing now is making sure that we can still take care of this building. We need the sales tax to maintain our commitment, not just to St. Luke's, but to everyone in the community, so that we have a hospital, we have a building, we take care of it. In 10 or 15 years, the hospital probably starts to show its age. I know my house did, so there will be things that have to be done that we need to get money in the set aside for, and make improvements. So that, I think, and again, I'm not on that side of it anymore. So maybe this is a good point for John to take over and explain why we need it now.
Yeah, as you know, and she brought a very good point up, as you know, as things get older, you have to maintain them. And through this, that's why we call ourselves a facility board now, not more than as a hospital board, because we're here to take care of the property, to make sure that they have a place that they can work, that the rain ain't falling in on them, or the heat and air ain't working. And we've already spent some money on stuff that has gone wrong since we built the hospital. We've had humidifiers that quit working, and if we didn't fix them, they couldn't do surgery in those places. And we fixed 3 already, and we've got about 5 more to do in there. So basically, the money that we are obligated under our agreement with St. Luke's to invest at least $450,000 of the county's money in it. And that's where the sales tax money is coming from. It's not coming from the landowners, it's coming out of the sales tax, which if you look at the sales tax, out of every $100, 25 cents is going to help maintain that property. And we're facing some issues now that some other stuff may go wrong, and if it does, it's gonna get really costly to maintain them. So as we look at this, I mean, as this goes on, we've got a very good agreement with them. We just have to maintain the fixtures the way we need to.
And that includes, of course, the medical arts building. I think a lot of times we just think of North Kentucky. We've got that other, the hospital has that other facility there, just downtown by GW. Okay, I'm gonna skip from 2010 and I'm gonna flash forward all the way up to 2020 when we enter into a lease agreement with St. Luke's Health System. So as part of that agreement, St. Luke's agreed to pay about $2 million a year to Allen County to cover annual bond payments that were used to build that hospital. Removing that, as Mr. Brocker said, from our property taxes. So that was a big lift off. I don't know how many mills that is, but that's a lot of mills to take that much off. So the first question, and this was raised to me by somebody who isn't here tonight, but are those bonds paid off? What's the status of that? How much longer are those payments going to go for? And if those weren't paid, the assumption that they had is those would be property taxes, right? So that's just kind of in the air. I didn't know if that's a Mr. Brucker question or...
I can handle that one.
Okay.
Our bonds are obligated out to 2036. So we've got to pay through that period to get our bonds paid off.
At that point, the hospital will be paid off.
Yes.
2036, it's 2025. That's 11 years from now.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's our agreement with them,
Okay.
that they're gonna cover our bonds through that period. The thing you need to understand though, and what I wanna stress here, we lease to them on a 10-year lease. So they're already 5 years into the lease, and they've got 5 more years on that lease, but then we'll have to renegotiate the lease at that point in time to cover the thing. So that doesn't mean they're gonna be there to 2036 to help pay the bonds off. I feel they will be. I mean, in my heart, I really feel they'll be there because we've got a good working relationship with them, and we have a number of people that sit on the facilities board. Since we've lost Lauren, we've got to replace him, and we've got 2 others we've got to replace in the deal. But the facility board, that's what their job is to make sure we maintain and take care of the property the way it is. So we listen to their people at St. Luke's on things that need to get done that's a structural deal, heat and air and like these humidifiers and that stuff to maintain the hospital deal. So that's what we have to take care of in this deal. So we've still got a period of time to go before these bonds will be paid for.
Pat, that kind of raises that question. I mean, I hear Mr. Brocker here, John's kind of saying in this, I feel in my heart. I just didn't know if you would care to comment on your experience. You're in the middle here. You're working with county residents, and then you're also working with your team at St. Luke's. So what's your feeling so far as you kind of wade into this?
Yeah, no, good question, because that was the question I had when I interviewed for the job. Because I've done a lot of this across the state and consulted on these hospitals. And so, you know, you always want to check out everybody, whether it's independent community hospital, like are a lot of them out there. A lot of critical access hospitals are still pretty independent, but I have done a lot of work with big health systems, and some do it real well and have the right attitude, and others you have to kind of really find out where their goals are at. And so when I interviewed and researched the position and met with leadership at BJC St. Luke's, I became very confident in their commitment to rural. So we have 4 rural hospitals, critical access hospitals, in what we call the Western system of BJC St. Luke's, or the one kind of associated with St. Luke's. 2 of those sit in Missouri, and 2 of those sit here in Kansas, of course. And then over around St. Louis, they have about 2 to 3 more. I always lose track. They have Sullivan, which is a really large critical access hospital. And so I have no doubt that that commitment is there. They're committed to those communities. And they're committed, even if they're taking a bit of a loss on some of those. And so it's up to us to be good stewards of their funding and their support, as always. But as far as I can tell, and everything that I have from leadership, we're having a really good year in Allen County this year, in terms of where we've been over the last 5 years, according to John and Terry and some others. And leadership is extremely pleased with the direction the facility has taken this year. And so some of the changes we've made, the culture changes. So that's probably the best answer I'm giving. Everything looks really well supported.
That's good. And then in that vein, I kind of want to ask this to Dr. Winker. As you look at, you've been around the block here, you understand the healthcare ecosystem. Do you feel like we have the pieces in the right place? Does everybody play nice in the sandbox here? I mean, when we think about, because St. Luke's isn't the only provider. We have SCK Mental Health with Asher Clinic. We have CHC. We have, there's other places in the county as well. So I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on when you look at our healthcare system. Are we doing what we need to do?
Yes, we are. In short, one of the things when I came here about 10 years ago to interview for a job is I found there was a good collaboration among the different groups in the county. Obviously there's CHC, there's the hospital system. At the time there was the family physician, there's the mental health clinic, but we all viewed ourselves as we are partners in healthcare for the county. It wasn't viewed as a competition, and that's one of the things that actually attracted me to this place. And honestly, on the 10 years that I've sat on meetings through the old hospital to the new hospital now with St. Luke's, I've never felt that we didn't have an equal footing among providers as to input. I mean, I was chief of staff here for a couple of years as a non-hospital employee, sat on the board, always felt like I had equal input. Even now, we can go at a pat with questions. We sit on monthly board meetings, and I think it's a really good relationship that all the clinics have here in town. And you don't see that in a lot of counties. You see a lot of nitpicking, a lot of competition, and that's the one thing that I still like about this 10 years later, is everybody's in it for Allen County. The other thing too I can say is, over the past really 5 years even, we've just started expanding services here. I mean, I can think of 3 services just from the inpatient perspective we've had. We now have 5-day-a-week telecardiology consultation services that we didn't have up until about 3 years ago. So Monday to Friday, anytime I need to talk to a cardiologist and I'm on call, I can talk to one. We've got tele-infectious disease. So if I've got a patient on the floor who's got an infection, I'm not really sure what's going on, I can give them a call. They've got a note on there same day. We've got 24/7 neurology access to telestroke patients. And these are services 2 to 3 years ago we didn't have. So we've been able to keep, I think, more patients here, especially over the last couple of years. And as we go on and on, we just keep adding outpatient services. We had 36 days of specialty clinic over the past month. And a lot of these services are not available within 60 miles other than through a St. Luke's health provider. Of the telemedicine services that we have for like pulmonary, gastroenterology, nephrology, rheumatology is just phenomenal. And these are people that are going to have to drive 90 miles up to the city or drive almost 2 hours out to Wichita. And in my experience, these are people that oftentimes lack resources to be able to go to those places. Family members are having to take time off work, even whole days. But now we just keep expanding all the telemedicine services here. So I really feel like there's a relationship, but a commitment that's here, to the county.
No, go ahead.
I want to talk just a little bit dollars and cents. So if you've seen those of you who are voting, you've probably seen the ballot language. This is going to bring in, or currently based on estimates, brings in about $740,000 a year, this quarter-cent sales tax. And so one of the questions I had, it's kind of a two-part. What if some of those projects, you mentioned dehumidifiers, John, in the hospital. So if you could kind of look back at what those monies have been spent on, and then looking forward. I don't know, Pat, you probably know this the best of anybody up here, but what are some of the projects that you see on your list? I don't know who wants to tackle that first, but kind of a then and now.
Well, I mean, John's going to know the history of a lot of these things. I'm still kind of catching up, but you know, one of the key areas in our hospital is making sure that surgery department stays at a top level, and surgery departments are really finicky in their requirements on humidity and the air that travels through there and suction and all that, so they're kind of complex. And so one of the things that this money has gone for over the last couple of years is to make sure that's top shelf, because it's very important. I mean, that's a very important part of what we do, and from a quality and a safety standpoint, that, you know, there couldn't be, you know, a piece that's at the higher level than that. And so,
I imagine, not starting,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's plenty of regulations, right, that you've got to meet,
Yeah.
that you can't just kind of have it,
right.
oh, I think this looks good enough. You know, you probably have got people that,
No, and the thing is, especially as it relates to future, I'm probably going to jump around on this a little bit, but you know, when we kind of look at the future, I built a new building. Myself and another group, we built a building in Harper County. We merged two critical access hospitals, and we had Kansas-based folks that designed that, and built that, and it's amazing. You can have a brand new building, and within a couple of years, you have stuff that you never would have predicted went out, and the cost is astronomical. And coming out of COVID, inflationary costs and all that, all those costs, as many of us know, just skyrocketed on us. So, you know, that building is getting right to the edge of that age where that stuff you would expect to start breaking down or having some major issues. And so far, to some degree, we kind of knock on plastic, we haven't had that, but we've had enough that it's certainly the money's been spent wisely. But the HVAC system, little leaks in the, and we have these from time to time, but little leaks in the roof and the ceiling of that, and we can have that leak down. And we had a recent issue where we had some of that leak down into the surgery department, and we had to shut it down because it's an infection control issue. It has to do with the humidity control, because we have to operate at a certain humidity in there. So believe me, that money is very well intentioned in terms of what we kind of plan for it.
have you got a punch list? I mean, have you got some things that you think,
Go ahead.
this is what we've got to spend money on?
Well,
I heard rumblings of a roof, and I think,
Well, yeah, and that's one of the rumblings going out there, but let's just analyze this year, what we spent. We haven't quite spent the 450, but we've been up there close to it, and this is on little things. If we go in and do a roof, you're looking at over $1 million. If we have to go in there and replace that roof, it's going to be well over $1 million. It's probably, I had an estimate given to me by a roofer, so it's probably going to be around $1.7 million. So, I mean, that's not saying we haven't got bids, and it could be a little less than that, but what I'm trying to tell you is, when you get into the big items, and we're spending about the 450 right now, just to maintain little stuff, is when you get into heat and air, and we gotta replace those big deals, the money's gonna start adding up. And even if you say that this will bring us in 740,000, that's not leaving you a very good cushion to take care of the big items out there that we will have to take care of to keep St. Luke's here and to maintain our building. It just isn't just keeping St. Luke's here, but it's maintaining what we've already built, what we've already spent our money on, what we're paying our bonds on, and that's very important to the people. That's important that we have it, because I'm like I said, I'm a county commissioner, and I talk to all the other county commissioners in the 12 counties, and I just am not going to get into their stories about the ones that have hospitals and theirs, and they wish they were us right now. They really do. I mean, they talk to me all the time.
yeah.
So
You've got the roof, you've got some dehumidifiers. Pat, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something
I
more
don't know
there?
that we have an exhaustive list. You know,
No.
We, for the most part, we have a list still, we're still working on 25, we have a couple of things that'll bleed into 26, but
Okay.
some of it kind of comes up because we're required to do an annual assessment on that building, and we do those assessments all the time. And so that was one of the things I wanted to add is going back to your question about BJC St. Luke's being with the system, they also take on a lot of cost in terms of everyday repair and capital to repair certain things. In the
This
building.
isn't just a one-way street.
Yeah, so they certainly jump in there and I mean, we've had some different oddball things that have happened and they just go in and fix them. And that's part of our maintenance and repair operating budget. And we have, probably, I'm gonna be off a little bit, but we probably just on maintenance and repair type of things, we're probably somewhere in that $350,000 to $450,000 range, so.
It's St.
It's
Luke's.
budgeted, you know.
Okay.
We try to come under that, but.
And that's not a county expense, that's a St. Luke's
Yeah, that's
expense.
St. Luke's expense.
Okay, wow.
But we do have to
Yeah,
come back,
we-
we still gotta do these
Yeah.
other humidifiers, they're on the table to be done. And we're gotta pay for those to get those other 5 up to standards of working order. And that's on the table. They're getting bids right now on them, and we're gonna have to maintain and take care of them when they get us the bill for having them replaced.
When this was last in front of voters in 2020, this was a walk in the park. This was a 2-to-1, more than a 2-to-1 decision. I mean, voters overwhelmingly supported this. And I'm not making any predictions. After enough elections, I don't know anything. I feel like I don't know anything anymore. So let's just suppose and take us down this road in a month from now that this fails. Then what do we do? I mean, you're telling me we got to do this. We got to spend this money. Is that then you and David Lee back there saying, okay, we've got to hike property taxes? I mean, is that the long and short of it?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I've sat on the county commission, I can tell you it's gonna come out of property tax. We'll have to charge to maintain the property, because that was our agreement with St. Luke's in the first place, that we must maintain our property. And that's where that $450 that we guarantee, plus you need more than that, because I can show you what we've spent. But, you know, we will have to have that money because that is part of our lease agreement with them. And so if it fails, it's going on the property tax rolls. I hate to tell you that, and I don't want to tell you that, but that's the only other option we have.
Well, and then, Patty, if you can I was talking with Jay about this just before. The idea is a sales tax. You've got people, God forbid this were to happen, but somebody gets in a wreck on 169. They could be from Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. They could be from Iowa. They're coming to this hospital. That's the logic there, that a sales tax, because this county hospital serves, you know, anybody who's traveling through it, that the sales tax is the best way to do that? Or is it simply people with a lot of property saying, I don't want to pay a lot of tax? I mean, what was the thinking back then on the decision for a sales tax being the best way?
I think it's probably a combination of both. Property owners not wanting to foot the bill. As I recall, as that facilities committee studied the hospital, they also talked to folks about the best way, the fairest way, the most likely to appeal to people, and the sales tax seemed the best way to do that. That's what I remember. I mean, I think that when you use the sales tax as a way to fund the hospital, you're linking the success of the local economy to the hospital. And so you're also creating sort of an incentive to maybe get over her. If you build the local economy, you build people who are purchasing things, people are buying their cars here, people are buying their groceries here, people are buying their Walmart here, their stores on the square. You're encouraging that too, right? That's kind of one of the ways we saw it, was you're trying to link the success of the community to the hospital.
Tim, if you'd like, I can provide a little bit more
Go for
onto
it.
that.
Yeah.
So
It is your job.
Okay, so they pay people. So the hospital is one of the major employers across Allen County. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that everybody's already probably pretty aware of that. They employ about 149 individuals. The call those direct jobs, right? So they work directly for the hospital. From those 149, they sustained what we call indirect or induced jobs. So there's a very thorough analysis called an in-plan that you can utilize and look at to see what a direct job does for the rest of your economy. And so we talk about things like your corner coffee shop, like Wild Bloom. You talk about grabbing lunch, Sharky's. Hopefully they own a house in Iola, and so now they need a plumber. And so we're looking at all of those other occupations and opportunities and ways that those 149 direct employees create induced and indirect jobs. And usually when they look at these analysis, you see about 100 additional jobs from the 149 created and sustained. So when you look at this employer, you're actually looking at over 200 unique jobs that are being sustained and created as the result of having an employer like the hospital within our community. In terms of the sales tax, the one thing I will add to that is we have a very competitive sales tax. It may not always feel that way, but that is the case. There are communities with sales tax of over 11% within Southeast Kansas. And so we are actually measuring up pretty well when it comes to sales tax, especially when looking within the state of Kansas, when an industry is considering choosing to expand here. Even if they're in place, their expansion can happen somewhere else, or if they're new to market, it helps when you have competitive taxes, and so sales tax is on our side.
Thank you. I wanted to jump and just kind of talk about the state of rural healthcare. When we look at, I was mentioning Freeman's decision to basically pull out and leave. They were the ones responsible for Fort Scott. They've got a facility already in Pittsburgh, so it's not like Frontenac is losing access. The county has healthcare and hospitals. But this question is just, when you look ahead, what are some of the challenges? And Patty, you're on the Reach Foundation, and Dr. Wanker, you've got plenty of experience to this. So I'm not sure who would take this first, but what are some of the challenges that we face when we look ahead to the long-term viability of our hospital and just access to healthcare generally in Allen County?
You guys want to chime in?
That's sorry, maybe that's too big of a question.
Either one, Patty?
I can talk about the healthcare aspects
Yeah,
if you want to
yeah.
talk about, if you want to.
The only thing I'm gonna say is Medicaid expansion, but
Yeah.
Okay, well, long-term rural healthcare, the outlook, it's hard, honestly, because, you look at the stats, there's a lot of rural hospitals. I don't have the exact number, but I did a little bit of research, and I might be wrong on this, but I think it was over 75% of rural hospitals are in the red.
That was the Kansas Hospital Association, I think, said 2/3 are in the red, but that was 2024, 23, so I wouldn't be surprised by 75% at all. Yeah.
And, again, I'm just going to read off some of the services that if we did not have a hospital system, we would lose here. So if you use any of these services or a family member uses any of these services here, we've got cardiology, we've got oncology that does chemotherapy, we've got pain management, we've got podiatry, gastroenterology, general surgery, rheumatology, urology, endocrinology, neurology, pulmonology. That's just the start. And so imagine not having a hospital system here, and imagine if your loved one gets sick or has an emergency, you now have to take an ambulance 30 miles south or 30 miles north for the nearest ER or for the nearest ER care. That's a reality if you don't have a hospital system here. And so imagine those visits. I think all of us know somebody, I had a family member recently, who had passed away. And if it wasn't for those telehealth systems, that was a big part. Otherwise, you're driving 2 hours up to the city with about 6 tanks of oxygen and then driving back, trying to manage that. That is a hard thing to do. So, if you look at all these things that a rural hospital system, that a rural health system needs, that a hospital system like St. Luke's can provide, that is, vital to a county.
How do you sleep at night when you hear statistics like 3 out of 4 are in the red in Kansas? How do hospital administrators, and when you look ahead, I'm sure you wouldn't, there's some information that we're not going to be privy to know, but how are we gonna be okay?
Well, we have some good mental health therapy in this program. I'm not ashamed to take advantage of it if I need to. You know, that's a good question. You know, the truth of the matter is, some of us have been doing this a long time and working with the government, you know, and Patty said it well as far as, you know, we're not an expansion state for Medicaid, which is a little bit disheartening to some degree. But we're kind of used to the government and whatnot throwing things at us and us having to adapt. And, you know, that's one of the things we've worked on just with the new administrator coming in our hospital. That's been one of our themes this year, is change, and how we change our culture, and with all targeting on patient experience. And I start answering your question that way because at the end of the day, in some regards, running a hospital in rural really isn't that complicated. It's really all about volume. And so some of you have been in meetings with me and I've said, well, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And that really is true in a lot of these communities where, and they've done studies on for years on this, but Fort Hays used to do a great economic study on this back in the mid-90s. But if you lose that hospital or you lose one or two of the docs, people, that will begin an out-migration to other communities to get their care and whatnot. And so, you know, that's very real, that, you know, that can happen. The fact that we have a system tied to this, I think, adds some security, because a lot of those hospitals, so of the 83 or so critical access hospitals in the state, let's say the 66 or 70% of those, you know, that's about 55 to 58 hospitals that are operating in the red. A lot of those actually receive direct tax subsidy for their operations, not the way that we have. And they're still struggling to make ends meet. And a lot of those, and I don't have the number, you could probably figure it out, I could probably have KJ give it to me, but a significant majority of those are independent community hospitals. They're not tied to a system, or they're looking for one. And I can tell you there's hospitals in our region that have reached out to find partners and they have been turned down. And it's just a reality out there. It kind of goes back to your example about Frontenac of Freeman.
Yeah.
You know, Freeman wants to do that, and I've been on that side. I work with a large health system. You know, I don't have the exact facts on this, but you know, here about 5, 6, 7 years ago, KU started to go down the road of expanding into rural as well. And although we rely on them for a lot of research and data and a lot of services that they provide to the state, they've backed off on a lot of their rural outreach as well, because they can't make ends meet for it.
Patty, just give me a minute of Medicaid. You say Medicaid expansion. I mean, how does that figure in here?
Well, it's my understanding that, and again, I'm not a very good retainer of numbers.
And I'm not asking you to give a stump speech.
I don't want to give numbers. Let's just say that a huge amount of support would flow into our rural hospitals in the state of Kansas if Medicaid expansion were to pass our state legislature. Back when I was on the board, so this is way before so many things. I mean, so many things have happened and changed since 2019, which is when I left the board, when I ran out my term. It's my understanding that we're a critical access hospital, and so a large chunk of our funding comes from having access to a special formula. And that could only increase if we had Medicaid expansion. I mean, I think it's purely a mathematical calculation. Nobody has to apply. Nobody has to. It just would be. It just seems like free money. It's money that we are paying federal taxes.
And they're going other ways. Yeah, they're going to other states.
and hello, it's going to our neighbors.
Is it 40 out of 50 states that have done this?
I think there's 9 states that are left, right?
49
Yeah.
that are left.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, so it's, it just would be a wonderful piece of security to have that here. But I mean, Pat said, and I appreciate what he said about always having to be scrappy and respond and just, you know, one thing after another. But you know, that shouldn't be the way we treat our communities and our hospitals and our patients and our people and it shouldn't have to be that way when there's just an easy way to make that work. Now, I don't know what this current administration might be doing that would change that, right? So I'm still sort of talking like it's 2024 and not like it's now. So that may be, again, I'm not an expert on the current politics.
Camille, I want to ask you a question just about a hospital's role in the community. You touched on it with the direct employment and how those jobs trickle down and affect, bring other benefits to the community. Outside of that, your job is to bring basically more jobs and more industry and economic development into us. Where do you see the hospital in that system, and what role does it play there?
Sure. And just to kind of further clarify what it means to create new jobs here, those are expansions as well as new to market. So that is those companies, they're already working in the community, like Russell Stover's is a great example, or you could say, if we're looking over at Humboldt, right, like Monarch or B&W, is to support with a business case, their choice or opportunity to expand and grow within Allen County. And so a lot of times when we're talking, whether it's a company that's already here, that's already doing great things, or if it is a new to market potential investment that's going to further our growth and our community, there are three primary buckets they look at. One is the site, right? Is the land ready? The second is, do you have electric? Do you have water? Can I make things with your utilities? And then the third piece is workforce talent. And workforce and talent is what touches on hospitals. And that's how it could affect our ability to support an expansion or to support new market investment into Allen County. The reason that it impacts that is a lot of the young talent, that workforce out there that's filling in those frontline positions, starting their careers, starting their families, maybe now they're middle management or looking at executives, they want amenities in their towns, and part of those amenities is schools, great school systems, and the other piece is healthcare. They're expecting to have the opportunity to access a hospital within the community that they're currently living in or choosing to move to work within the community. And so employers aren't dumb. They're asking me those questions. Are you able to provide me with the people I need to do the jobs? And right now, I can confidently say yes. Yes, we do have those people. I know that because I see it every day, all of the success of the people that are doing business here right now. And so I can say it confidently. But when we start losing those amenities, that does impact our ability to attract workforce here.
Does it work in your world? I mean, I know that with CHC, you're trying to bring in new physicians. Does the hospital help that? I mean, is that a factor when you're looking in and bringing in somebody and saying, hey, showing them around? I imagine it mattered to you. You've got young children. I just was curious on your side.
100%. Honestly, so, as I said before, I've lived in 3 different countries, 5 different states, and my time in the service, I was around a lot of people that moved. You moved every 2 to 3 years. So you would all talk about, okay, where are you going to go? And there were 3 things to piggyback what she was saying that people looked at. The first thing was safety of the area. Safety for my family, safety for my kids. 2 and 3 among everybody, and one might be 2, one might be 3 in different places. School system, healthcare. If you didn't have those in place, people were not going to move there. And I know every time we did a move, I had 3 kids one time, 4 kids one time. We just said, okay, what are the schools like? Do they have a healthcare system that if my kids or my wife gets sick, that can support us being there? And so that is a huge recruitment tool, not only for healthcare providers, but honestly for anybody looking to move, out of the county.
Can I piggyback on, especially talking to veterans or active duty service members, that a lot of times they weren't allowed to do a permanent change of station, a PCS, to a location if they had a child who had even if it was a high functioning disability. That was a huge indicator. And so it's not just, we always say when it's with workforce recruitment, it's just not just the person you're hiring. It's their partners, it's their kids, it's their golden retriever. It's everybody in that family that's impacted by that move. And so it's not just that frontline employee that we're thinking about. And I think the veteran affiliation is a great example because it does dictate what stations they go to.
Thought of that. And I neglected to mention the VA clinic is part of our healthcare ecosystem, and that's a new piece to the puzzle. You know, that's so new that I'm not thinking about it at the top of mind. I've gone through my list of questions. You guys probably have some questions. Have you got any? Go for it. Yeah, I can bring it. I think I can bring this to you. Is that okay? Okay, sorry.
As a business owner here, oh, I'm falling. Here we go. As a business owner here in Iola, I just want to say, having done research on our sales taxes the past year, as you know, we've had some, the word is fleeting my brain right now, but on the ballots, we've had other issues with the sales tax. And I want to say, as a business owner for our community, that Wild Bloom may possibly not exist if the sales tax for the hospital doesn't go through. I see so many of our frontline workers that are coming through the drive-through. They're coming through our downtown area. You have, Dr. Winker has date night with Christine often, once a week at Wild Bloom. Don't worry, I won't tell them what day. But I'm very grateful that our sales tax does go towards the hospital and how important it is, because those people directly influence our business financially and our ecosystem here, what we do socially and culturally. So to have a business, I don't necessarily have a question. I just want to say how important for this room to know, and people online, how important the sales tax vote is, because it directly affects the businesses and the longevity of the businesses in this community, even in the first 1 to 3 years if we don't pass it. So I just want to be a voice there.
Kind of echoing what you were saying, Camille, about this idea that you've got direct jobs, and then as a result, Myra's indirect, benefiting from those
All my
positions.
information really does come for businesses like Wild Bloom. And that's the great part of having an economic developer. Is so if I share something with you, some of it is derived from me doing some research, but a lot of it does come from the people who've chosen to do business in Allen County. So Myra's one of those people.
Have we got any other questions in the room? People, or comments, or? Sure.
I'm Jay Kretzmeyer, and yes, I served with Patty back in 2012 when we built the Allen County Regional Hospital. I wanted to, several things that I had four points I wanted to make, and I might duplicate slightly. But I did a little research before coming. One thing is that when in 2012, when I was on the hospital board, I had a heart attack. For many, actually, I didn't know the term at the time, but I later learned that it was called the widowmaker. I was taken to our local hospital, and at that time, and I was stabilized there, and I am a survivor. One of the things that I wanted to communicate the importance on August 27th, 2024, KSN News reported that more than 58% of Kansas Rural Hospitals were at risk of closing. In their news article, they indicated that Kansas had 98 rural hospitals, down from 104 the prior year. The other thing I want to make note of is, unlike property tax, a portion of our local sales tax comes from persons who don't even live in our area. So it serves better in many ways than property tax, in that it is someone who lives in another county and purchases things here. Also, to remember, in 2025, Kansas had the Axe the Food tax. So signed in 2022, as of this year in 2025, there's no longer Kansas sales tax on food. And the last thing that I wanted to comment was, from the Kansas University Institute for Policy and Social Research and their publication in February of this year, there are multiplier effects of operating a hospital. And out of every 100 jobs in the healthcare industries, it supports 52 jobs in other industries. And out of every $1,000 of current hospital wages and salaries, it supports an additional $450 of income for those working from grocery stores, restaurants, utilities, industries, and other. I am a supporter.
Thank you, Dave.
My name is Erin Dixon. I have a question for St. Luke's. The big beautiful bill that is supposed to be going through could bring $1 trillion from federal Medicaid spending over the next decade, disproportionate impact on rural areas. Health experts warn that these cuts will particularly be harmful to rural communities which have higher rates of Medicaid enrollment and already struggling hospital systems. A KFF analysis estimates that federal Medicaid spending in rural areas will drop by approximately $137 billion over 10 years, and there will be an indirect effect on critical access hospitals. Many rural critical access hospitals rely heavily on Medicaid reimbursements to stay open. Faced with significant reductions in payments, many will experience greater financial strain and potentially face closure. The Rural Health Fund, the bill includes a $50 billion rural health transportation program spread over 5 years to help offset those Medicaid cuts. However, many experts believe the amount is insufficient to counteract the loss of funds. What are we thinking about doing to mitigate that? Because I feel like the tax is something that's like minuscule compared to if this really happens.
Yeah, sounds like we're back to Pat going to therapy. And I don't make light of that, as I in the way that it's meant. But a couple of things. One is, I wouldn't read too much into that. Anytime these things come out like this, sometimes it's to our benefit to kind of play them up and get on that. But those that work with me quite closely know that I try to be pretty authentic and straightforward on a lot of this. I wouldn't get too caught up in the Chicken Little part of all of that. And that's not to say that it's not going to have an impact, but the truth is, like a lot of federal programs that come out, we don't know until they actually write it into the regulation and it starts rolling out what really the impacts are going to have. Now, according to most of the data, that those states that are non-expansion Medicaid states, hypothetically, are going to get hit the hardest.
So there's a double whammy there? Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We don't have a large payer mix of Medicaid at our hospital or our clinics. And part of that is we have a great partnership, so to speak, in the community we have a federally funded community health center. And Dr. Wanker may be able to respond to this, because the way that Medicaid patients are going to qualify is going to have an impact on how many qualify. And so that number may drop off, and it may put more onus on those organizations that are built to take care of that population. It will hit us, but it won't be quite, I don't think, as dramatic as what you read off. And also that transportation is actually a transition program. And so I can talk in more detail about that, but go ahead, it sounds like.
My question to you is the 503 money that is being used to fund the, I guess is it called it's not called 503, is it? It's
Well,
like the hospital money, the grant money, the federal money that they get, is that going to still be there for the community health center? Because my understanding is that there's a possibility that that's even going to be cut.
Well, now I'm not in that world anymore. I used to live in that world. They are a PA, Public Health Service grantee for that. They have to be in order to become an FQHC. I haven't seen anything that suggests the current administration's going to cut those funds for those grant dollars, but the truth is I'm not. I used to be a state legislative coordinator back eons ago, but I haven't really kept up with that, so Dr. Wanker can kind of tell you. The one thing that I think we kind of take the positives where they're at, I guess is where I was headed with my answers. So the Rural Health Transition Program that they have coming out, that's where the $50 billion, and every state is half of that's, a big chunk of that's going to be divided equally between the states. So every state's going to get $500 million of that. And then the other $25 billion is going to be spread out based on probably programmatic applications, if you will, for those dollars. And the emphasis has been on those states that have the most need for rural. So we might get a little more than New Jersey. That was kind of funny. But the other thing is the state has a real history of partnering up and kind of developing consortiums or partnerships, or if you will. And that's going to be a major thrust on getting that money, whether it's the first $500 million or the second, or a piece of that other. And so there is a team that's working on that behind the scenes. It's led by Dr. Mosher with the University of Kansas, and he's on the board of the Kansas Hospital Association, who I'm on committees with and pretty actively involved. And so those communities that can get together and develop some of those relationships, and a perfect one of those relationships that we probably at some point ought to be talking about is how do we team up to make an even stronger relationship between Southeast Kansas Community Health Center and all of that, and how we can work together. There are some ideas on how to do that, some things that will benefit both of us. So the Medicaid's going to have an impact, but the truth of the matter is, anybody that tells you that it's actually going to have this impact, they have a crystal ball that, so I would hold, I just hold on and wait and see on some of that. It's a long, that's probably the answer you wanted to begin with.
Yeah, I understand, but I also, we heard what the CEO of Freeman Health System said, that was blamed. He attributed the not going forward with that hospital in Frontenac, which we just, he attributed it, he said, basically to paraphrase, we had an understanding of the healthcare environment 2 years ago, and that is not what the healthcare environment is today, and we don't know what it will be going forward, and so they just pumped the brakes on it completely.
Well, I wasn't there. I guess what I would say.
No, I know. I'm
not. I know, and I don't know him. I used to be pretty familiar with Freeman, but I used to work for Mercy Health System. Was a senior executive for them for a lot of years, and so I kind of know a little of that lay of the land down there. But with that being said, I think the truth of the matter is there's just a lot going on in healthcare in terms of changes. I'm not defending the big beautiful bill or the things that came out. I'm not a proponent. I'm Switzerland. I like being in that role.
We're gonna make it pick.
But what I would say is one of the things I will tell you, and some of my KHA colleagues, may not like this, but in some regards, in the state of Kansas, we are overbedded. We have too many hospital beds, and in that runway, and I don't know that this is the case, but in that runway from Fort Scott down to Pittsburgh and then across the line over to Joplin, there are a lot of hospital beds. And some of them, are completely full, and some of them, though, you kind of got to go. See, that's kind of our issue, is we have a lot of beds in our area because there's a lot of competition in and around us between Ottawa and Chanute. So, remember what I said about volume.
Every community, you can't look at a community and say, you need to lose your hospital. It's just...
Yeah. So there's a lot to it, and I've been in those rooms where we decided to expand and then we backed off. I wasn't with Mercy when they yanked one out of Independence, but I will tell you one of the big threats about 5 years ago in 2020, my board chair in Harper County at Patterson and I testified to Governor Jeff Collier, you may remember Collier, he was the chairman of one of the rural health, big rural health committees for HRSA, or suffice to say, kind of like CMS. And I can tell you that there is, inside the bureaucracy, there's a real move that over the last 5, 6, 7 years, that these rural communities don't all need their hospital beds. And so, if you want to ask me what a real threat is there is a federal push behind the scenes to say, Iola, do you really need your hospital beds? Could they all go to this other place? And we remove them from Garnett. So that very thing happened in Independence. And Brian Williams was the CEO of Labette County. They went with that alternative because it was the only way to save healthcare in that community, and I support that. But remember, they don't, in a community this size of Iola, Allen County, it needs its hospital beds.
I didn't know if Dr. Wink, if you want to jump in on that, or if we should continue open floor on that issue. Just a light subject of the big beautiful bill and its effects on.
Honestly, on a policy, I can say I don't receive any info from our top people about how it's going to affect us at all.
Great. No, thank you. Any coffee table conversation? Any other questions? I'm very glad you asked that though, because that was something that we.
That was an elephant in the room.
Yeah. No, and it stood out to me about their decision to move forward.
It's very, very frightening, thinking that there's a possibility that we won't have enough, to be able to even keep our nursing homes open,
Yeah, that's legitimate.
And I am on it, so.
Thank you.
My name is Alice Bowen, and my sister Kay and I just returned today from Topeka, where we served as delegates to the Silver-Haired Legislature. And if you don't know what that is, go back and read the Iowa Register article from a couple of weeks ago. But the purpose is to have delegates from all across the state get together and talk about priorities for seniors. And we came up with resolutions that we are going to present to the legislature about what our priorities are. And one of those was to preserve Medicaid and to expand Medicaid. And we were talking about the fact that there is a lot of support for Medicaid expansion in the legislature on both Republicans and Democrats, but the leadership doesn't like to bring it up, sort of refuses to. So the important thing that we need to remember is that if you want Medicaid expansion, if that's something that we think is important and will help our hospital, we need to talk to our legislators and try to get them to push this forward in the next sessions. And it's not a partisan issue, it's a people issue. It's what can we do to help people who need health care. And this is one thing. So if you feel strongly about it, talk to your legislators.
Do you think, is it fair to say, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but hospital administrators, this is a no-brainer, duh, we should be expanding Medicaid in Kansas.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just the way the makeup is in committees and caucuses inside the legislature, it's really hard to get that out. I will tell you that there isn't a lot of energy right at the moment from KHA because it's being it's just kind of stone dead, to be perfectly candid.
They have tried year after year after year.
No, that doesn't mean,
Yeah.
I don't want you to hear me saying that in a way that means give up, because it is groups like yours, interest groups like yours that can make a difference, and leadership at some point will change. I do think there are valid arguments to be candid on both sides of that. My self-interest is that, we could use that funding between both of our, I think, the FQHCs and whatnot, and our hospitals and our clinics could use that funding, and because there's some people that are out there that simply aren't being covered at all, and that's really the sad part.
Dr. Winker, you see that, I'm imagining in your work. As a provider, you see a good amount of people without any health insurance at all who walk through your doors?
Yes, and matter of fact, we see them from here, but we also see them from Neosho County, we see them from Woodson County.
Yeah.
I have patients who will drive in from just, neighboring areas, just because we are one of the only FQHCs in the areas. So yeah, we see that a lot. I would say probably, I don't have the exact numbers on this. I think the last I heard, about maybe at least 15% of our patients that we generally see in our clinic volume each day do not have insurance.
Completely uninsured.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mary Kay, I saw you back there. I feel like joys and concerns at church. That's
Yeah. Well, I go back quite a ways. A lot of you will remember I was on the original group that researched whether to have a new hospital or remodel a lot of hospitals, and looked at them and to make that decision. And once we made the decision we needed a new hospital, the big deal was how you're going to pay for it. And I think it was pretty much unanimous that it needed to be sales tax. And the next thing on that is, a lot of us were business people, the amount of the sales tax is very important. We didn't want our sales tax to be higher than Chanut's. We just wanted to be competitive, because sales tax in people's mind is very important, and it is important. So, we wanted to spread the burden out, not only on the county, but everybody that's coming in. And the hope is that with the new state park, we'll have more people coming in to help with that sales tax. So keeping the sales tax below our competitive counties around us was very, very important. And I feel like this community will support it again. This community steps up when there's something important. We did with the hospital, we did with the schools. 70% is a pretty good margin. So I hope y'all will, that everybody here is going to vote for it.
Richard's asking me a question. Why do it 5 years, Mr. Brocker? So you're county commissioner, so why not just do 10?
That's a good question. That might be a David question, because I'm not sure how they set up the 5-year deal, because I wasn't on the
It's too late now, but just...
But the thing I would like to say on that, and I've got a couple things I'd really like to say. We're renewing it. It's a new tax, but it's actually the same tax we've been paying. So it isn't like we're adding to our sales tax any, and that's the way people need to look at this. It is not that we're raising our sales tax more than what it is right now. It is just basically a renewal of what we have been collecting. Even though, when you read the ballot, it's going to say new. But what we've got to get through to the people out there, that this is a renewal of what we have been collecting and stuff. And I think that's really very important. And I'm happy to be up here with a distinguished group that I'm with up here. And the other thing I'd like to say, and it's not that I have to say it, but I believe what I'm going to say. St. Luke's has been an asset to this community. And we have such a good working relationship, I think, with the county and everybody that works with St. Luke's. You don't understand that every other one would wish they had what we have right here. And you've got to appreciate that. I'm sorry to say that, but you really got to appreciate that, because a lot of communities don't have what we've got. And we work very good together. And that, that's just my, 2 cents worth, but I believe in what I'm telling you here.
And from a healthcare perspective, I echo that same feeling also. Being a non-St. Luke's employee, being a physician in town working for a different group, the partnership is, in my opinion, second to none. It's been great.
I was going to say, you didn't answer the question about 10 years, but I'll let you.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Cloud, and I just have a very simple question. Well, it's not a simple question, it's a short question. What is the status of our hospital? Are we in the red? Are we doing okay? Is there a danger that it's going to close? How are we doing?
Good question. Next question. No, that's a good question. I will tell you, to be candid with you, because there is a lot of competition, we're a little bit careful about how we share some of our data, but I can tell you that we're having literally one of the best financial years we've had in the last 5 to 6 years, by a long ways. Now then, we're not quite where we want to be, so I'll let you kind of take that. We would like to be operating completely in the black all the time. And that's really hard in rural with the size and the amount of competition that we have in our areas. But I am really proud of our team. We've done a lot of change over the past year. I've brought in kind of a different way that we approach things. Our patient experience is one of our primary focuses. And to be upfront with you, we have some room to grow in some of those areas. We haven't made it yet. We're not where we want to be on a lot of that. And so we do have some room to grow in some areas. We've done a lot of growth this year in reducing the number of transfers. We have a number of our inpatient beds have really grown in terms of our swing beds. Some of you kind of know about the swing beds. And our abilities to get patients back from different areas, whether they go to St. Luke's in the Metro or Ascension in Wichita or up to Emporia. Even Topeka, we've done a lot better job of getting those patients back because I think we're all in agreement. I feel this exact same way, and I've been taking care of in big hospitals. I don't want to go to the Metro to get my health care if I can possibly help it. But I for sure want to get my butt back here to get it taken care of, for the rest of my care. And so we have done an excellent job on that. We've made some recent changes where we've brought in some new hospitalists, our doctors that take care of our inpatient crew and patients, and those just started here in the last, or they'll be starting one about a month ago and another two are coming on. And so we think that's going to bring some added understanding of how critical access hospitals work. So, I can go on and on how proud I am of this group that we have. We have two new nursing leaders, one at Garnett and one here, that are over our med-surg department and our ED. And I can tell you, they've been here less than 6 months in their roles, and the atmosphere, the attitude, the approach is night and day different in the best possible way. And that's not to be negative about how it was before, but that is always a work in progress, because I will tell you, the folks that work for you at the hospital are working their tails off. And because of the way our budget is, we work right on the edge. There isn't any fluff of extra folks. So kind of in a different way, piggybacking on, I feel like I'm monopolizing this, but to piggyback on something that Camille and Dr. Lenker were talking about, influencing people to come here, the volume, adding volume to the hospital helps us hire and train our staff even better, because they get exposed to more and more and more. And so that volume isn't just about revenue, it's about getting our staff exposed to all the diverse things that come through that door to make them even better. And we have a good staff now, but we need that volume because it's kind of like, if you're going to go to the surgeon that does, 1 heart surgery a year, or you're going to go to the surgeon that does 300. So in a way, nursing is the similar way. If they don't get exposed to as much as they possibly can, we do mock runs and we do a lot of training, but it's not the same as taking care of patients on that floor with the appropriate volume. So I know that was a long-winded answer to your question, but I think you can be very proud of the group, and I think you can be very proud of the advances that we've made in improving how we do things, even beyond what we were.
Tim, can I add one thing that this made me think of, just as a side note? When you're looking at workforce opportunities for homegrown talent, there are a few sectors that you can start at the bottom and get to the top through short-term credentials, and healthcare is one of those. And so you see that a lot with like CNA or phlebotomy, and then you can see them kind of rise up and slowly get to what we would call like a high impact wage. And so I would say one, I think, piece that we forget sometimes on the workforce side is that this is an opportunity for our high school graduates to get a high wage, high impact job and keep them in our community.
Or bring them back to our community.
Or bring them back.
All right, last question. Unless there's somebody else. And then we'll do one more.
Are you at all concerned about the fact that this election on this issue is at this election where it has to be a very low turnout election, don't you think?
As opposed to like a legislator.
Yes.
Yeah,
As
gubernatorial.
opposed to that, I don't know what years this has been on the ballot before, but I would suspect that the turnout, I mean, even if it was 70%, if there's only 10 voters, that's, not good. So I don't know if that's a good thing, because people who are really passionate about the hospital will get out and vote, or if it's a bad thing, because in those areas, especially in Iola, where there isn't there aren't two candidates on the ballot for the council people, what incentive is there to go out and vote unless it's for this issue?
It's a good point. It was, in 2020, it was an August election.
Okay.
This issue. So you're right, it wasn't on the November, and there's a lot of uncontested write-in campaigns. So, I didn't know if anybody want to answer that question before I go to bed.
All I'll say is that events like these are probably more important because of that. I think what happens sometimes when people don't vote is they assume they know what the results will be. So I would encourage people to not assume. That would probably be my primary concern.
I'm strongly in favor of keeping this going. One thing I want to point out is that our sales tax here is lower than both of our other locations. It's among the lowest that I know of in the state. So keeping it the same is not a heavy burden. It's also super clear, we've talked about Topeka, we've talked about Washington. No one else is helping us. This is a chance to actually help ourselves and keep our community, keep this vital piece of our community here.
Thank you, Ben. All right, I want to do kind of a lightning round. So I want each of you, and I'm going to start with Dr. Wenker, to give people your closing comments or kind of just your last final thoughts on this. Voting starts next Wednesday, advanced voting does. So, I mean, people are going to be able to vote like next week on this. So when people go to the ballot box, what do you want people to be thinking about? And I want to limit you just to like a minute each one. So it'd be pretty quick, but just kind of your thoughts.
I'm in trouble.
I would say a vote yes for the sales tax ensures that we're going to have quality health care in Allen County for the foreseeable future.
That bought you some time right there.
I would second kind of what Mr. Alexander said. This is how we can help ourselves. This is how we hear the scary headlines, and if we support our hospital by voting and support our hospital by using it, whatever we can, that's how we help our community.
The hospital is a major employer in Allen County, and it supports over hundreds of jobs. It impacts the future trajectory of our community with industry recruitment and retention in place. Either way, I encourage you to vote, and whatever you choose will dictate what the future of Allen County could and would look like.
And I'd say that I'd go back to my last thing, that we're not raising sales tax here. We're just maintaining it to maintain our hospital, which we really need in this community. It's something we really have. And one of the things the facility board is going to do is do a mailer out to all the residents to encourage them to go to the ballots and let them know that we do care and that they should care about what they have in this community, because it is an asset. It is a very good asset for this community. So that's my thoughts on this.
I will keep it short, but a little twist on it is, it sounds like there are a lot of folks in here that are supportive. And so the other little twist is this is an investment in an asset. And what I'd like to leave you with is you have a voice in it. You have a voice at the voting box, but you also have a voice in letting us know, how we can do better. If there's something that you're concerned about, I think you guys may, if you've read Tim's article where we interviewed, I think I shocked him by putting my cell phone in the paper. I've done that in all the rural communities that I've worked in, and I haven't been burned yet on it. But we really want you to help us take care of this investment. So you have a voice at the voting box, but it doesn't end there. We have to have your voice to make this even better. When you're in that ambulance, and the ambulance may be taking a right when they need to take a left and stay here in town, you have a voice to say that. When you go to the Metroplex and you're at St. Luke's South and you need rehab, you have a voice to tell them, no, I want to go back to Iola. So that's what I want to leave you with, is the vote isn't where it ends. You guys have a voice, and we want you to have that voice. And I want you to pick up the phone and call me.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's here. Remember, yeah, get out and vote. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.